Hey everybody, we are just a few days away from the start of the NHL regular season, and that means it is time to get my predictions in. And we're going to go division by division and pick where I think teams are going to finish in the final standings this year. I honestly really have a love-hate relationship with prediction videos. On one hand, it's a lot of fun to do. It's a lot of fun to look back on and see what I got right and what I got wrong. But on the other hand, they always make people mad. No matter what, somebody is going to be mad. All 32 teams can't make the playoffs. Some teams are going to have to finish last. And no matter what you pick, some fan base is getting mad that you picked their team to not be good. So, honestly, I don't think predictions are anything to really get that worked up about. They're literally just guesses. I'm going to be right about some things. I'm going to be really wrong about others, just like I am every year. It's not something to really take all that seriously, yet people are going to get mad. But doesn't matter. People can get mad no matter what. I really don't care. I'm doing my predictions, and we're going to go over where I think teams are going to finish this year. And again, it's just a guess. It's just a prediction. And there's obviously room for teams to move from what I think they're going to be. But before we get into it, I just ask you please subscribe and hit that thumbs up. It helps out a ton on the video and helps the channel and is very, very much appreciated. But let's get into it here. We're going to go division by division and talk about what I think the final 2021-2022 standings are going to be. And I'll talk about which teams I think make the playoffs and which ones are on the outside. So we're going to start in the Atlantic Division. And as you can see, I've got Buffalo in 8th place. I don't think that's a big surprise. Pretty much everybody does. 6 and 7, I've got Detroit at 6 and Ottawa at 7, but I think those two are going to be very evenly matched and somewhat interchangeable. You know, they could easily flip-flop those spots. I do, however, think that Brady Tkachuk not being there for Ottawa is not going to help their case. He still doesn't have a contract. We're almost to the start of the season, so we're looking at him missing regular season games now. That's a big loss for the Sens. So that's one of the main reasons I dropped them to 7th instead of 6th. But those two are going to be pretty close to each other. In 5th, I have the Montreal Canadiens, a team that was in the Stanley Cup Finals last year. But, man, they obviously, I think losing Shea Weber is going to be a massive loss for their back end. He is a franchise #1 guy, and to lose him is going to be huge. Then you've got the Carey Price situation where he's going to be out for at least the first month of the season. That doesn't help. Joel Edmondson is out. He's week to week with an injury. So, you're looking at major pieces being out for the Montreal Canadiens, and the season hasn't even started yet. So that's why I have them down in 5th. 4th, I have the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is a team that I don't fully trust. I think they're very heavily reliant on their big four. Obviously, Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander up front. Like, those four guys have to carry everything, especially offensively. They don't have a lot of secondary scoring. They added pieces this offseason, but they're all just pretty much depth guys. They're not impactful players. They lost Hyman to Edmonton. New goaltender with Peter Mrazek replacing Anderson, and I guess Campbell's kind of gonna probably be the 1A. But I don't know. I have questions about this team. I do think they're a playoff team, but I don't think they're gonna be a first place team this year. I think the Leafs they're gonna be an interesting one to watch. At 3, I have the Florida Panthers. Florida, I think their whole season hinges on their ability to keep the puck out of their own net. That's where my questions are with Florida. They had a great year last year. Their defense played well last year. We know they're going to be a great offensive team. And Florida's a team that honestly I think could finish anywhere from 1st to 5th in this division. Any of those spots are potential for the Panthers. Whether they finish 1st or 5th, they're going to be a great offensive team. They're going to score a lot of goals. I don't question that with them. But I think what's really going to determine how good this team is their ability to keep the puck out of their net. They're going in goal with Spencer Knight and Sergei Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky has not played well in a Panthers uniform. His numbers have been terrible. They're going to be relying heavily on Spencer Knight. If Spencer Knight has a great season, Florida has a chance to be a great team. If Spencer Knight plays like a rookie, which I personally don't think is going to happen, but if he If he struggles and plays like a rookie, then that could mean struggling for the Panthers. So I also question their defense a little bit. I think their top two, obviously Ekblad and Weegar, are both excellent defensemen. But when you get past that, I think there are some question marks there. How much are you going to get out of guys like Forsling and Montour and Gudis? And, if they play well, this team, again, probably going to be really good. If they struggle, then you're going to see this team drop back a little bit. So Florida's a really interesting team. Boston, I have at second place, and I certainly have questions about them as well. But I think they made their bottom six significantly better than what it was last year. I think the secondary scoring issues that the Bruins had last year are, for the most part, going to be fixed with the additions of Haula, Foligno, and Nosek. Defense is a question for me. Second line center, obviously, is a question with this team. But Charlie Coyle had a goal and an assist in the one preseason game he was able to get in after knee surgery, so he looks ready to go. And we know Taylor Hall is going to be driving that second line. So I've got Boston in second, and then winning the division, obviously the Tampa Bay Lightning. Yes, they lost some pieces this offseason, especially, that whole third line is gone with Goodrow, Gord, and Coleman all gone. So depth is definitely being challenged for the Lightning, but at the end of the day, they still have their big guns, the core pieces, Point, Kucherov, Cirelli, Stamkos, Hedman and McDonough on the back end, Vasilevsky in goal. The big pieces are still there for Tampa Bay. They should be an elite team once again. Moving on now to the Metro Division. Now, I want to say this before I show my standings for the Metro. I'm somewhat confident in one position in the Metro Division, and I think the rest of the Metro is an absolute free-for-all. So, again, there are teams that I might have in 5th or 6th place that could literally finish first. This Metro Division is an absolute free-for-all. So, with that in mind, here's my Metro standings. Down in 8th, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets, and that's a pretty popular pick. I just don't think they have enough offense. They've got some good players, and it looks like they're going to have some young guys make the team this year that could have a significant impact. Igor Chinakov and Cole Sillinger especially. But I just don't think they're there yet. I think there's too much missing from this team, and they're in a very, very tough division. Not that necessarily the best teams in the entire league are in this division, but in that there's a lot of very evenly matched teams in this division, which makes it such a free-for-all. And I think the Metro is going to be a real dogfight this year, and Columbus just isn't going to be able to keep that up all season long. Now, this is after Columbus. I have no idea after Columbus. New Jersey I have down in 7th, but I think they could finish higher than that. They could finish 5th potentially. They're a team looking to take that next step. They added Bernier, they added Tatar, they added Dougie Hamilton. There were big moves made with this Devils team. They've got young players that are going to be stepping up and playing bigger roles. It's I almost feel bad putting New Jersey in 7th because I think New Jersey is going to be a lot better this year than they were last season. But at the same time, somebody's got to finish there. So I don't know. This division is going to be wild all season long. I have the Washington Capitals taking a big step back this year in 6th. And the biggest thing is I do not trust their defense. I do not trust their goaltending. Ovechkin, up front, Oshie, they're getting older. They do have a fairly old team overall, but I still think they're going to score goals. Nicholas Backstrom being out, though, does not help. That puts a lot more pressure on Kuznetsov, and Kuznetsov hasn't exactly played well the past couple of seasons. So unless he gets to being back to being 2018 Evgeny Kuznetsov, there could be a problem there with Backstrom injured. I don't know. Washington, I have a lot of questions, and I don't like their decor. I don't think it's very deep, and I don't think it's that good overall, especially defensively. They have some offensive defensemen, but they don't have a lot of great defensive players on that decor. So, and then the goaltending, Samsonov and Vanacek, that's very middle of the road goaltending to me. So I have them down in 6th, and I know that's a big drop off for the Capitals from where they usually are, but it's going to happen at some point. It's going to happen at some point, and I think the way things are setting up, this year could be the year. In 5th, I have the Philadelphia Flyers. They made a lot of changes this offseason. Philly could definitely finish higher than this. Philly could also finish lower than this. It totally depends on how these moves work out. Like, if these moves fix the problems in Philadelphia and Carter Hart has a bounce back year, and this team could be a team that could be up there in the top 2 or 3 of this division. If the moves go the other way and just, make things worse, this team could be down in 6th or 7th easily. They could finish middle of the pack. Philly is the ultimate wild card, I think, this year as far as where they're going to finish. I don't know if there's a bigger wild card in the NHL. Maybe Chicago out west. But as far as just range of where they could finish, I mean, Philly could be anywhere. 4th, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins. Man, it seems like every year I think it's going to be the drop-off year for the Penguins, and it just never is. I don't know. Them missing Crosby and Malkin to start the year is really going to hurt. They're going to have to work hard to survive the first part of the season to put themselves in a position to where they can make a bigger run in the second half when those guys come back. And then, I think they could be a playoff team. But I can't pick Pittsburgh to miss the playoffs because then they just never do. So I feel like Pittsburgh just finds a way. Number 3, I have the New York Rangers. I'm expecting big things from the Rangers this year. It is time to shine. They got a new coach. Gerard Gallant does very well with teams and getting the most out of them. The young guys are going to be playing much higher in the lineup and much bigger roles this year. It's time to shine for the New York Rangers. Big expectations for them. At 2, I have the Carolina Hurricanes. Really didn't like their offseason, but their core is still there, and Aho and Svechnikov are going to be able to, carry the load up front. They've got a pretty deep forward group still as well. Frederik Andersen coming in goal. I think a lot of this year is going to be determined by Freddie Andersen in goal. If Andersen plays like he did last season, Carolina's in danger of missing the playoffs. If Andersen bounces back and plays like he has for most of his career, with that team defense in front of him, Carolina should be a good team again. So I got the Canes at 2, and leading and winning the division, I have the New York Islanders. I think they are the deepest and most complete team in the Metro Division. They brought back, most of the team that went to the Final Four last season. They were able to keep the band together. I think that is huge. So I got I got New York winning this division, the Isles, and I just think they're the best all-around top to bottom team in this division. I think 4 teams from the Metro make the playoffs. I think 4 teams from the Atlantic make the playoffs. So I think it's the 4-4 split for the Metro and the Atlantic. Moving on now to the Western Conference and the Central Division. This is another division that I think at least the middle of it is going to be an absolute free-for-all. Arizona finishing in 8th, I'm fairly confident in. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. I've got Colorado at number 1. I'm fairly confident in that. I think this is Colorado's division to lose, even with the losses this offseason. They replaced Grubauer with Kemper. If Kemper stays healthy, he's a top 10 goalie. They'll be fine if Kemper stays healthy, and that certainly is a big if. But Colorado's still got the top guys intact. They've got McKinnon, Landeskog, Rantanen, Kadri, Burakovsky. They've got Makar on the back end. Got Gerard still there on the back end. Like they're going to be okay, and this is their division to lose if they can stay relatively healthy. So 1 and 8 are the ones that I'm confident in. 2 through 7, I think, is a free-for-all and could come out in many different orders. I have the Winnipeg Jets in second place. I really like what the Jets did solidifying their defense this offseason. That was kind of the one big question with Winnipeg was their defense core, and they went out and made their top 4 better and their overall defense better. Bring in Nate Schmidt, bring in Brendan Dillon. Those are upgrades over guys like Derek Forbert and Tucker Poolman who were playing there last year. So they've upgraded their one question mark. They've got one of the best goaltenders in the NHL in Connor Hellebuck, and they've got a great forward core that has 3 really good lines, and depending on how the fourth line plays, could be 4 really good lines this season. I've got Winnipeg in second. I have St. Louis in third, but I think St. Louis could finish anywhere from third to seventh. It's going to really depend on how the guys play and if they play up to their potential. I love the Buchnevich edition and the Brandon Saad edition, so I think that helps the Blues a lot this year, especially offensively. And I think they have the potential to certainly be a third-place team this season. If things don't go well, if the defense struggles, if Binnington struggles in goal, this team could drop like a rock. But if they play to their potential, I've got them in third. I've got the Minnesota Wild in fourth place. They're a solid team. It's just I don't know if they've got the high-end talent enough to finish higher than fourth in this division, but I certainly could see them as a potential third-place team. I also could see them if things maybe don't go as well. If they don't get as good of goaltending from Talbot and Kakkonen that they did last year, then this team has potential to drop. But if they get that kind of goaltending, they play solid team defense, and obviously they've got some guys that can score now up front, which is a little bit different for the Minnesota Wild if you look back to their general history. But with obviously Kaprizov signed and Fiala and guys like Joel Eriksson Ek and Jordan Greenway playing better, like this team's got some offense now. I think they finish fourth. I have Chicago in fifth, and like I said about Philadelphia, Chicago is a complete wild card. I mean, after the offseason they had, bringing in Fleury, bringing in Seth Jones, making the changes that they did, I think Chicago could potentially finish much higher than fifth. Chicago could also fall flat on their face potentially and maybe drop to sixth or seventh if those moves don't work out. If Jones has as bad of a season as he did last year, that's going to be a big problem. I don't know. Chicago, to me, is a complete wild card, so I got them in fifth. I've got Dallas in sixth. Man, I like the Dallas Stars, too. I just have a lot of questions. I'm not sold on any particular part of this team. Like, their goaltending was great in 2020. It wasn't as good last season. Their defense is good when they're healthy, but they really got to stay healthy because they're not overly deep on the back end. And if they start to lose two top four guys out of the lineup, all of a sudden this team's in big trouble. So I have depth questions. Up front, I don't know if they're going to be able to score enough goals. I mean, obviously, Ben, Sagan, Radulov, Guryanov, Rupe Hintz, like, they've got guys that can score, but they're not a consistent offensive team. And I think that could be a problem for them potentially. I could see Dallas finishing as high as third. I could see them finishing as low as sixth or seventh. Again, they're a team that could really move around a lot. And I have Nashville in seventh. I think there's pieces missing in Nashville, and they haven't gotten great production out of their top guys recently, with the exception of Roman Josi. New goaltending with Pekka Rinne gone. UC Saros has all the pressure on him now, and they only have David Riddick as the backup, which I don't like that. I think they need to do something better as a backup to Saros than Riddick. He hasn't played well the past couple of years, but I don't know. I don't trust Nashville this year, so I have them in seventh. I do think that 5 teams from the Central make the playoffs, though, because the Pacific, in my opinion, is the weakest division in the NHL by a pretty substantial amount this year. So I think 5 teams, both wild card teams, are going to come from the Central. So I have Colorado, Winnipeg, St. Louis, Minnesota, and Chicago making the playoffs from the Central this year. And that does bring us to the final division, and that is the Pacific. And I do think that this is the weakest division overall in the NHL. There's a couple of pretty bad teams. There's a lot of very mediocre teams in this division. And then obviously you've got Vegas at the top. But Vegas, to me, clear front runner for this division. They should win it, no questions asked. I have the Edmonton Oilers in second. I mean, McDavid and Draisaitl, if they stay healthy and put up, McDavid and Draisaitl numbers, they're going to be enough to carry this team in the regular season. Now, we've seen that is not enough to carry the team in the playoffs, but we're only talking regular season here. I've got them finishing second. I have Vancouver now in third. Pettersson and Hughes signed. Demko in goal with Halak backing up. good offense, a lot of good young talent. Horvat, Besser, JT Miller, obviously young guys like Hoglander and Podkolzin making impact up front. Like this team had a horrible season last year. They should be better this year. Should be much better this year, honestly. Connor Garland added in up front as well. So I really have high hopes for the Canucks to be a good team this year. I had LA in that spot, but man, LA, Byfield has already suffered a significant injury. That is going to hurt the Kings, and I don't know. I think I trust Vancouver to have a bounce back year more than I trust the LA Kings to make that big step. So I have the Kings in 4th place, just missing out. Seattle in 5th. There's a lot that I like about the Seattle Kraken. I do think they're going to be a competitive team in the race for the postseason, but I just think the offense is going to come up a little bit short. I have Calgary in 6th. They are perpetually underachievers each and every year. I don't think they have good depth scoring. I think their secondary scoring is going to be an issue. And their defense is going to be worse than it was last year. I think they've gotten worse on the back end this offseason. So unless Jacob Markstrom comes in and has a career year and really stands on his head, I think it's going to be a tough year for the Flames. And then down at the bottom, I have the Sharks and the Ducks. Obviously, Anaheim in the midst of a rebuild, very much in the midst of a rebuild. And San Jose and just veteran players on big contracts that aren't living up to those big contracts. That's going to hurt them. The whole Evander Kane situation is a huge distraction, and they're not going to have him on the team. So, that's a big goal scorer out of the lineup, and it's just San Jose needs to just commit to the rebuild at this point because that is where they're heading, whether they like it or not. Again, I really think I think 1 and 2, I'm fairly confident in this division, but 3 through 6, those 4 teams could finish in any order in the Pacific. 7 and 8, I'm pretty confident is going to be San Jose and Anaheim. Up top, I think it's going to be Vegas and Edmonton, but that 3 through 6 spot, those teams I think could finish in any order, and it's going to be an absolute dogfight between them for that last playoff spot because I only have 3 teams from the Pacific making the playoffs this year. Like I said, I think both wild cards come from the Central, so it's really going to be a battle for that 3rd spot, and any of those 4 teams could end up taking it, but this is the order that I have them finishing in. But those are my predictions. Again, they're just guesses, nothing to take too seriously, but I have to do predictions, so we'll see what happens. We'll see which ones I'm right about. We'll see which ones I'm wrong about. Last year I was right about some and very wrong about some others, especially Philadelphia and Vancouver. So we'll see what happens this year, but super excited to have hockey back. Super excited for regular season action to get going and meaningful games to be played. And it's going to be a really fun year, full 82-game season again, to see where these teams finish up, who makes the playoffs, who doesn't. And of course, as in every NHL season, there's going to be some surprises that catch us all off guard. So with that, please don't forget, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, our memberships, merch store, and donation links are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys soon.